15 lights. Sure, opening kitchen blind. Got it, turning on kitchen task lights. Okay, closing 4 things. Lights off.
Okay, welcome everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Welcome to our presentation today from NDIS Property Australia on the NDIS Property Opportunities Explained. I'll be your host today. My name's Rob Maxwell and I'll be joined by 3 other speakers shortly, which we'll go through. Now I will shortly turn off my video just so that we can concentrate on the actual screens and the presentation itself. Give you a bit of housekeeping. We've got questions and answers. You can all type some questions in. Now we'll endeavour to answer those during the presentation and then at the end as well. Also give you a bit of an idea of the attendees today listening to us, and it's a very wide variety. We've got builders, we've got potential investors, we've got carers and SDO providers. We've also got mortgage brokers and accountants on the call. Now, you all might have varying and different reasons for being on the webinar today. We're trying to keep this as general as possible and hopefully cover most of the areas that you're looking for. Please reach out to us after this webinar presentation so that we can discuss with you how we might be able to help you going forward, and we can partner up and see what we can do. All right, let's get underway. Just give me a second, I'll start the presentation up. Here we go. First of all, the disclaimer. Sorry for that. We're reasonably new to doing Zoom webinars, so if we have any issues, just bear with us. We're also obviously got the issues with the internet. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything will go okay. This webinar is just meant as general information only. If you are looking to invest in this sector, please, before you do, contact your trusted advisors, whether they're financial advisors or legal or tax experts. For those of you who don't know me, and probably half of you do and half of you don't, my name's Rob Maxwell. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I've been in the financial services industry for over 20 years, sold investment property, been a financial advisor, and now looking to help people in this sector. Today, you'll hear from 4 of the NDIS Australia team and our associates. I will set the scene initially, give you an overview of what the NDIS is all about and the opportunity and why we're looking at it and why perhaps you should as well. Min and Jared from Build New Homes and NDIS Property Australia will then go into more detail. Min will cover off the financial side, the returns that you're likely to get. He'll also use a live case study of a client he's currently working with. Then we've also got Meredith Sweeney from Alice Developments, who are a builder currently building NDIS and SDA compliant homes in the sector. We're looking to go for roughly an hour today, so bear with us. We're trying to make this as interactive as possible as well. I will, at the end of each speaker, look at the questions that you're all typing in and endeavour to get them to answer some of those as well. So let's see how we go. That's the details of NDIS Property Australia. The head office where Min and Jared are is in Brisbane, as you see there. Also, to give you an idea, probably half of the people on the call today are in lockdown in Melbourne, like myself, and the other half are a little bit luckier up in Brisbane. Bit of a background first as to why we're doing this, why Min and I looked at this sector initially many months ago. And when we first looked at it, and probably similar to most of you on the call today, we looked at the actual potential rental returns and yields that you can get by investing in an NDIS approved property. And we thought, wow, 10 to 25% returns on the investment. This is something that we have to look at both for our own purposes and also potentially to help our referral partners and therefore build a business out of it. Now, when we started to look into that a bit deeper, we realised that there is a bit more involved than a traditional real estate property investment where you get 3 to 5% returns. It's a lot more complicated, a lot more parties involved in the process. And in speaking to some of you and others, we looked at, okay, what are the risks of investing in this sector? And it really comes down to 3 areas. Initially, the government are providing the income support, so how long is that going to last? The second risk, and the one that has led us down this path is, okay, it's all very well to build one of these properties, but how are you going to make sure that you've got someone that will rent it, a participant who's disabled, in order to rent the property? So we look at it now, and this is one reason why we've invited carers and SDA providers onto this webinar today, is that in order to minimise that risk going forward, we want to partner up with the potential end participants who are actually going to live in these homes, preferably at the very start of the process when we're looking to build them. So we want to consult with them as to where they want to live and also in what type of home they want to live in before we actually do it. So it's very much a custom build approach that we're looking to do. And again, we've looked at this. Yes, we can create a great business out of it. It's a very new area that's got enormous potential over the next few years. But at the end of the day, it also is an investment that is going to make us feel good, because we're actually doing a good thing for the community by helping parties provide homes for those that desperately need them, being the highly disabled participants. So it's a socially very responsible thing to do, which is why we're so keen and excited to get involved in the sector. So what's it all about at the end of the day? It's about helping disabled Australians with appropriate accommodation that they can live in, that they'll enjoy to live in, that's designed for them, also that it's in the areas that they want to live, with whom they want to live, whether it's by themselves or with one or two other participants. And the beauty of all of this is that the federal government is funding the program for 20 years with guaranteed rental returns, incentivised to investment property owners to provide this kind of housing. So that's why the opportunity is so exciting. A quick agenda. We're going to go through what is impact investing. Now that's basically just socially responsible investments that help better the community. What is the NDIS? I'll give you a brief explanation there. What is the SDA, which is the Special Disability Accommodation, and how does that work? What are the objectives of the scheme? What are the vital social outcomes it seeks to achieve? What are the potential returns? How might they be able to be available to property investors? Who can invest? How might the investment be achieved? We've touched on a couple of the risks and the pitfalls. And then at the end, we'll discuss with you how we can work with both clients, providers and referrers going forward. Quick background as to the NDIS story. The NDIS program was set up by the federal government in 2016. It's supported by both sides of Parliament. It started in 2019, and what it effectively is a 20-year funding guarantee from 2019 to 2039 by the federal government. Why are they doing this? They're basically doing it because over the last 30 years, the government has provided older style group homes for participants with severe disabilities. These homes are getting older, they need to be updated. The government needs to fund that, so they've looked at an alternative model. There's also an issue with, there's a number of current NDIS participants that are in unsuitable accommodation, whether that's in hospitals or in nursing care homes. There are also a number of disabled participants that are actually at home being looked after by their parents. And their parents are getting elderly. They need to look at alternative options going forward in order to make the lives for themselves and their children better. Now, the government has allocated $22 billion over the next 20 years to this program. And remember, that's just rental payments. They're incentivising the private sector to actually spend the money up front and build these properties. There are currently 28,000 identified potential participants in Australia. Now, this was based on a government and private enterprise research that was actually done 10 years ago. Out of that 28,000 people, 16,000 are currently in the SDA program in older group style homes. 6,000, unfortunately, are young people in aged care facilities. Now, this is one thing with coronavirus that we can all think about at the minute, the issues around the aged care community and the unfortunate deaths that are occurring. Just think about this for a minute. There are currently 6,000 disabled participants living in aged care, not because they want to, but because there's no alternative, that are under 65 years of age that have been exposed to that environment. Now, I look at it and think, well, I wouldn't really want my son or daughter or parents or anyone who is disabled and young to be actually having to live in that environment. Wouldn't it be much better if we could actually put them in their own homes or give them the choice to live with a couple of other people? As I touched on, there are a lot of participants living at home with their aging parents, which is a problem. They need to get into their own homes, whether they're nearby their parents and the parents can come and visit them. If they've got carers looking after them, that would be fantastic. Out of that 28,000 people, there are also 6,000 in the system that aren't aware they could be eligible for NDIA funding and SDA housing. And Min and I attended an online seminar last week where the updated figures are suggesting there are actually 60,000 potential participants for this program, but a lot of them aren't aware of the program. They're not aware that they actually can get funding for it. And that's why it's up to us, it's up to the carers and the providers to make them aware that they can apply for this funding. This slide just touched on what I talked about a minute ago, that even though the government has prioritised getting the disabled participants out of aged care, as you can see, there's still well over 5,000 currently in that environment looking for an alternative accommodation. Government's committed $700 million to the program, and the SDA policy is designed to support housing for it. Now, what is the SDA? You're probably thinking all this wording. NDIS is the National Disability Insurance Scheme set up by the government. The SDA is the participants who require specialist housing solutions and have high support needs. That's the accommodation side. Now, to give you a picture of the way it works, there are a lot of participants that are currently getting support from the government via what's called SILs, independent living providers that contract the carers and the physios that look after the participants and look after all their everyday needs. Then they have to do a plan to the NDIS and the NDIA in order to apply for the funding for the housing component. That can take up to 3 months, and there's only roughly 5 to 10% of all NDIS participants who will actually get funding for the accommodation side. So the NDIA is promoting a model which separates the bricks and mortar housing from the provision of support services. Again, just looking on the emotional side of this and why it's so needed and why it's such a big opportunity for all of us to help going forward and potentially earn an income from it, is that this is just an article that talks about just Queensland alone that's currently got nearly 300 patients in hospitals that are looking for alternative accommodation in homes. So there's an enormous waiting period, and there's a huge demand for these homes, whether they're apartments, townhouses, or homes, for these people to move in the areas they want to live. And as you can see down the bottom, it's up to 3 months that they could be waiting in hospitals, and sometimes years before they can be able to put up in their own accommodation. Now, to give you a little bit of background, there's 4 different categories that apply to this funding, which therefore influence the type of housing that's actually built for it. You have improved livability. Now, improved livability is the lower level of disability. It's mainly around luminance, contrast, improved wayfinding and lines of sight in the homes. So there's not a lot of extras that need to be actually built in the home for that. Then we have fully accessible. Now, a fully accessible NDIS participant might be in a wheelchair, but still have be able to move themselves around and not a problem there. In terms of what the fully accessible homes look like, they have to have accessible bathrooms, they have to have accessible external doors and outdoor areas. If you think of the kitchens, they probably need to be a bit lower. So if you're in a wheelchair, you can be able to reach out and easily do your day-to-day living. They have to have power to doors and windows. So a lot of it is actually voice activated through Alexa. So these homes need to be wired for the future implementation of this technology that makes it easier for the day-to-day living of these participants. As we said, you need to consider access to the kitchen sinks, cooktops, meals areas and key appliances. So it's just a little bit of a different way of building these homes. Now, later on, Jared will actually show some photos of how some of these homes look. Then you've got the robust design. The robust design is for NDIS participants that might have a few emotional issues. These type of homes have to have high impact wall lining, fittings and fixtures to protect against potential violent outcomes, or they need to have secure windows, doors and external doors. They need to have appropriate soundproofing, laminated glass, and they need to have an area where it can be used as a retreat or a quiet room for staff and the participants to be able to spend a little bit of time away from everybody else. And they need to have a lot of space and safeguards to accommodate needs of residents with complex behaviours, and preferably reduce noise controls both inside and outside. And then finally, you have the high physical support category. This is for the NDIS participants that need a very high level of care in wheelchairs. They need all of the other requirements that I've mentioned for the 3 other categories, plus they need provisions put into the homes for structural ceiling hoists, so that again, the government, when they set the participant up in this, can come in and actually put the hoists in the home. It has to be assistive technology ready that we've discussed with the Alexa, that's voice controlled. They have to have heating, cooling and communication technology. They also have to have emergency power backup of at least 2 hours. So it has to be solar and power backup added to the home. And the actual rooms need to have wider hallways, wider access for the wheelchairs to be able to move freely and turn in circles. So you need wider doorways, wider doors, and bigger areas around the bedrooms and en suites. Give you an idea of the opportunity here, and we think that it's a massive opportunity over the next 3 years. This slide, if you look at the right-hand side and talk about the SDA shortfall, shows that pretty much in every state and territory of Australia, there is a significant demand outstripping current supply. That's pretty much everywhere in Australia right now. And we believe probably will be for the next 5 years before the actual building of these houses catches up. Quick run through of how it works. The participant with their carer applies to the NDIA for funding for housing. And as I mentioned, it might only be 5 or 10% of the current participants that will qualify. They do their housing plan. That's assessed by the NDIA and they approve it and provide the funding. They then search for the new housing, and that's where we come in as a trusted consultant and advisor. We've got the relationships with the builders, we've got the relationships with the end investors. We want to also go on the journey right from the start with the actual participants, talk to them and their carers about the type of housing they want, about what ideally they'd want built into the home and where they want to live, in what suburb. And we also want to make sure that it's close to all the amenities, whether it's public transport, shopping facilities, or hospitals. They pick their home. We get the investors then to build the home with the builder. Once the home's built, a tenancy agreement is signed with the SDA provider. Now, the SDA provider or manager is if you think of a traditional rental property, you have the rental property agent. In this case, the SDA provider has to be a specially licensed entity by the government specialising in this area. The NDIA then pays the money on a fortnightly or monthly basis to the SDA provider, and that SDA provider then pays it to the actual owner of the property. There are 5 main parties involved here, as we said: the NDIS, the government department, you've got the participant, you've got the supported independent living provider, which is the carer organisation that helps look after the participant. You've got the SDA provider, which handles the leasing arrangement and the payments and deals with the NDIS as well. And then, of course, you've got the investor or the owner in the middle. Now, another thing to be aware of, the more we look at this sector, the more we realise that there's also a market for the actual NDIS participant themselves or their families to actually build one of these homes for themselves. We think that that's, along with investors, a great opportunity going forward. This slide's a bit busy, but it's deliberately designed to basically show you that it is a lot more complicated than doing a traditional investment property purchase, and that's why you need help from all the different parties involved, and that's where we come in as your trusted advisor or referrer that can help you with the process. Now, again, just to look at this from the point of view, it's all about the actual participant and giving them housing preferences and choice going forward. It's about choice and where they want to live, with whom they want to live, whether it's by themselves or with a couple of friends or others that they can socially interact with, and the type of house they want to live in. It can be a home, it can be an apartment, it could be a townhouse. We are dealing in all different areas here, and we can help you and your clients in all of those. Now, what the feedback is that most of these participants want to move to their own place and find greater independence and privacy whilst maintaining proximity to their family, friends and services. Under the old model, they were put into group homes where they were living with people they didn't know, maybe don't like, and the very little chance to actually get their own space and their own freedom. Similarly, if they were in a hospital or an aged care facility. Co-location choices, more than 2/3 of the participants want to live with different people in their current situation. They have a strong preference to live by themselves with their support. And as you can see down the bottom, I would live somewhere with younger people my own age is the general feedback that we get. The homes have to be built on a reasonably flat block. If you think that they're in a wheelchair, they can't be trying to go up a hill or down a hill. So therefore the homes have to be designed to be appropriate and accessible. It's not a case of building a home and then hoping they'll come and rent it. You actually have to custom build it and design it for the participant. And they want to have their own privacy in their own spaces. And Min will talk about how both inside and outside, these homes are being designed to give these people the ability to spend time by themselves away from their fellow housemates. And they want to feel safe. They want to live where they feel safe and where they're close with their family. And they want to have accessibility to all the local amenities, transport and hospitals. Just quickly, potential demand in Queensland, as you can see, pretty much everywhere where you could build these types of accommodation, there is a current shortfall, which is the right-hand column on the right-hand side. So right now, you can't go too wrong by building in pretty much all areas of Australia. Where we come in is we're going to monitor going forward the supply and demand, because what will happen with this sector, because of the attractiveness of it to investors, is a lot of houses will eventually be built when everyone finds out what this is all about. And there will be areas where there'll be far too many homes built where supply will exceed demand, and therefore the chances of getting tenants will reduce and the risks will increase. So we need to avoid that. Just to wrap up, participants, choice and control. It has to be fit for purpose that we talked about. It has to be what the participants want to live in. Location is key, both demographics, infrastructure, livability. Build quality is key, and Meredith and Min will talk about that shortly. And you have to have value for money, both in the yield and arbitrage, in that you look at certain areas where the cost of the property might be lower relative to the rental. So regional areas are great. And Brisbane probably has got a little bit of more of an attractiveness than Melbourne or Sydney because the cost of land is far less. All right, I'll hand over to Min, who will take you through the rest of the presentation along with Meredith.
Thank you, Rob. I'm going to go through the my slides pretty quickly because I want to leave some time for Jared and Meredith to cover their bits. The information I'll present to you now with a lot of numbers is really public information online with the NDIS website. So this is the main website there with all the pricing and payments. Next slide, please, Rob. And these are the documents which everyone has access to themselves if they want to review the information with regards to the designs, the investor brief released by the government, and also the current price guide as of June or July for the new financial year there, which my numbers are based on. Next slide, please, Rob. This here is the crux of the calculations for investors, really, when it comes to what they get, if it's a improvability or robust or fully accessible or high physical, with or without the carer on site. Okay, we work predominantly in the houses, a house, 2 residents, 3 residents sector, and also the villas, townhouses, and apartments as well, which we're now assessing now for investors. Just to give you an example, a 2-bedroom unit in inner city Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne, where there's 1 resident in there, the government is actually paying, if you look to the right hand side there, high physical support with or without OOA, 113,000 plus 9,000 of their pension, RRC, reasonable rent contribution, is 120 grand the investor is receiving for 1 tenant living in 1 apartment with 2 bedrooms by themselves with a carer. When I say a carer doesn't mean they're living there in the actual apartment. They will live on site, obviously, but not in the same room. That's, it's quite attractive to consider as well. And I'll cover that example later with Rob at the end of my slides. Next slide, please, Rob. Here is a location factor. So if you think in terms of factoring of multiples, 1.00, top there, house 2 residents, 1.00. That is the benchmark number. Give or take, give or take 3, 4, 5% of that 1.00 is the factoring calculation that applies to the rental. So if you have $50,000 for 1.00, that's what you're getting. If you're living in a regional area which has higher demand, you might get 1.05 or 1.04, 4 or 5% higher. And that's really a small calculation variable there. Next slide, please. This here is a typical, my favorite, a fully accessible house, 1 carer on site with 2 fully accessible participants. Simple 200 square meter house, and the numbers are, next slide please, Rob. We'll show you that for a new build with 2 residences with a carer on site without a breakout room with sprinklers, you're looking at a 34,585 per year plus the 9,300 rental from the disability pension is an $87,000 gross income payable for that 2-bedroom house. Okay, the common theme here that I want to stress to everyone is, no matter where you build a SDA home in Australia, it's going to be roughly the same price, give or take 4 or 5% of the 1.00 location factor. So really the variable here really is the land pricing and the type of dwelling, be it a townhouse, villa, or apartment, or a house. We've lost the slides there, Rob. Rob?
You there? Sorry,
Yeah, mate.
I'm not sure what's happened there.
You might need to go back to the slides again. There we go. Next slide, I think. We're on the next slide now.
You're not letting me change the slides again, though. That's why sorry, people, let's just bear with us for a second.
As Rob's trying to figure that out, I'll keep on talking about. There we go. Yeah, here we go.
Sorry, I knew there was going to be some hiccups throughout the presentation.
Oh, that's done. Moving on. So this is a typical 4-bedroom high physical house design. Again, it's just in concept only, and I'll jump over after these numbers. Jump over to a real life case. Here is a 3D render of a high physical home design, and as you can see here, there is extra large garage to allow for the wheelchair access in the garage area, and around the house really is space for them to spend time by themselves outside their bedroom in the courtyard, private courtyard there on the other side, and also in the backyard as well. So space is definitely very important to the participants. As you can appreciate, if you have a carer on site with 3 other people who are fully accessible or high physical support needs, it can be a little bit congested inside the home. So having space inside and outside the house is ideal for them to have peace of mind and space for themselves. Yeah. The next slide here shows the typical possibility, of the gross rental return for that high physical house. So even though you might have a high physical design house, it doesn't mean the demand in the area or the provider who has the potential participants actually have 3 people who are high physical needs. So in these numbers here, it shows you a combination mix of one fully accessible, high physical, and one improvability, or fully accessible plus 2 of those and 1 high physical, 1 fully high accessible and 2 HPS or whatnot. So they're the range of incomes there for a typical 100% occupancy 4-bedroom house for the carer. Now, in saying that though, it's going back, Rob, one of the providers in this NDIS summit we went online with 400 people a week and a half ago, they said their vacancy was about only 4%. So it's not common to actually hear about large vacancies if you're building it in the right area with the demand there. So next slide here shows an actual real life case scenario of a client of mine who came to me who already had purchased a block of land. He purchased it for the purposes of, just go back, Rob, just go back the slide there. For the purposes of actually building it for an SDA home 7-8 months ago, but he never got around to talking to the correct builder with designs and seeking out participants in advance. Our normal process really is, we would normally go to a builder with a brief, and the brief is the investor has a borrowing capacity of X amount of dollars. Again, call it 600,000 as an example, and we need to have an indication from the provider with the potential participants how many people in the house and the kind of design, so that the house is designed and built fit for purpose. I want to keep on mentioning to you guys the word fit for purpose. Okay, the reason why an investment in this may fail is because a house may be built too small or is designed incorrectly, and although it may be temporarily sufficient for now, long term you want the participants living there for a long time, many years. And if you want to do that, you actually have to have the correct design as per their requirements, and has to be fit for purpose. So that, as per the NDIA foundation, core foundation, it gives the participants choice and control. Where you live, who you live with, and how you live. All right. So that's why this block here is a 14 metre wide and 30 metre long design, block, flat on a main road. And the investor wanted to consider robust design and robust design because he was told by some person in Sydney that that's probably ideal. And you know what? The probably answer is true. But again, until we talk to an actual SCA provider or carers, still providers in the area who know or have participants who have a need for SDA accommodation. You know, in my opinion, doesn't matter. It is really relevant. The investor's opinion is really relevant. It is based upon the foundation, the requirements of the participants. It's all that matters, what their requirements are. Okay, so bear that in mind as we move forward to the slides. Next slide, please, Bob. Here is a typical robust, again, we're looking at a dual living house, 5-bedroom house. There's 2 options here. 5-bedroom house, 3-bedroom on one side and 2-bedroom on the other side. So 3 plus 2 design house as one option. Okay, and the next slide will show you. So in this case scenario here, we're looking at 2 designs. One is a 4-bedroom high physical or a 5-bedroom robust design house. And remember, a robust design house really is people with complex behaviours, so that prevent injury to others and themselves. The house is soundproof in and out, and also laminate glass. So in this case scenario here with my client, I am going to assume that we're not, just because you have a robust design doesn't mean we will have everyone as robust participants. And also in addition, if it's high physical design, doesn't mean that everyone will be high physical support categories. And I'll show the examples there in the next numbers anyway. Next slide, please, Rob. So here is the 5-bedroom dual occupancy house design. As you can see there on the bottom section there, the 3 bedrooms there, 3 bedrooms on one side, and then on that smaller dwelling, unit 2, is a 2-bedroom design. So although this is proposed in concept as a 5-bedroom design house, it doesn't mean there will be everyone as robust. It could be 1 carer with 2 robust people on the bottom, and it could be 2 people above in the top side there, design, as all robust alone, or it could be improvability only. Okay, it comes back to what is required by the SDA provider and what kind of participants they have who actually are in the area as per their business model. Okay, next slide here. This shows you the income if it was purely a robust design house. So on one side being on the left-hand side there is the carer, OA, with 2 robust residents there. The gross income there is 75,759 on that bottom there. And on the other side, the smaller dwelling, I've assumed improvability, okay, at $50,000 for those 2 tenants there as well. So a combined gross income of $125,700 in gross income for this dual living house. Now, what if the provider says to the client, no, I have a immediate need for high physical. Well, here is the design for the high physical design on the same block of land. So 4 bedrooms, one being the carer and her ensuite, and the other 3 rooms is high physical. Okay. And by the way, with regard to carers, as I want to point out, it doesn't mean that someone lives there full time, 24 hours a day. They may have a sharing roster of 8 hours times 3, or more so 12 hours times 2, coming and going. This new build, now what if the provider says there's no need for their 4 residences, 4 participants, sorry, who don't need a carer, then we're looking at 4 participants, sorry, with improvability as an example, right? With no carer, $102,000 gross income. So the matrix result could be 4 people in fully accessible in the home as a group home, or 4 improvability, or it could be a carer plus 3 high physical needs people. It just depends on what the demand in the local area is. Okay. Next slide, please. And this again, fully accessible, different numbers there. So 113, 102. Next slide here is high physical. So this is the maximum number. And look, it is unlikely. It is. I think we all agree it's unlikely that you would actually get 3 high physical participants with 1 carer in the same dwelling. It's a maximum number, but it's unlikely. It might be 1 or 2 of them plus someone in fully accessible or improvability. So hence the reason why a lot of investors are seeing this as a viable, attractive option to invest in residential property here. Here is a 3D render showing you what it looks like as a high physical design. As you can see here, the hoists in each bedroom there, bedroom 1, 2, and 3, hoists going from bedroom to the bathroom for all 3 of them there. And at the bottom corner there is the carer's ensuite there. So this is a 1-car garage with 3 bedrooms there. So why use, I want to spend a bit of time here because I want to explain to you guys the difference as to why we are really making a bit of difference in the SDA market here. So me, Rob, and Jared, we've worked in real estate, construction, housing for about 10, 15 years or so. We've done combined over 400 homes, new homes. And our experience has been over 60 years in financial services and construction. Right now, we work with a lot of different builders and developers. So unlike a lot of marketers out there who are pushing NDIS stock, they really are aligned to 1 or 2 builders and 1 or 2 providers only. And they're probably selling in 1 or 2 regions. Our business philosophy here really is we want to work with as many participants, as many providers, as many builders and land developers and referral partners as possible, because we know that there's a huge demand. Massive demand around Australia, particularly Queensland right now, where there's really strong demand for the SDA sector. And and I'll give you an example as well. We all know we all saw the logo Summer Foundation earlier. As big as Summer Foundation Group is, based in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, they've only placed 300 places in the last few years. 300 out of 28,000 needed. There's so much demand. There's 4.4 million people in Australia with disabilities, and around about 400,000 have been signed up with NDIS, of which 100,000 were only last year. And the biggest comment that came from the summit last week was the Summer Foundation said to us, they don't know how many people out there, no one knows how many people out there are high physical support needs with extreme functional impairment. We don't know. So many people out there are living with their parents or grandparents, and even they don't know about SDA, NDIS. So you start seeing right now on the news, radio and TV ads, a lot of NDIS advertisement right now because market awareness is very important for us, for everyone, sorry. So we're working very closely with boutique property developers doing small sites for apartments and townhouses. And the biggest problem out there really is the pricing. So with regards to high physical and robust, the prices for those houses out there are around about $600,000 to $800,000 for a house and land package, which is extremely high. So we are seeking, we're helping guide developers to create sub 450, even sub $400,000 NDIS properties. And I'll go in more detail about that later. The last few days I've been talking to, me and Rob have been talking to, and Jared have been talking to other builders in regional Victoria, regional New South Wales as well. So even though we're based in Queensland and we're focused with that stock on Queensland property opportunities, there's demand everywhere. And the challenge is finding the providers and the participants who need that property there. Another challenge also is funding. So not many banks or lenders, actually provide funding. Also a handful of non-bank lenders, and they're very strict with their LVRs and deposit requirements. There's also challenges with short valuation shortfalls, where investors will expect a 15 to 20% shortfall valuation on the price of the contract. So we're trying to overcome that as a team by creating one-part contracts for house and land with developers who will assist with construction of the property and payment at the very end, which will help with the lending process as well. Secondly, creating product under $400,000 as well. This is very important for us as well. And also, we're now talking to and focusing our efforts on builders who are actually SDA approved to retrofit and renovate. When I say renovate, we mean renovate brand new apartments, brand new townhouses, even renovating existing. Okay, we have access to one developer who has 1,300 brand new townhouses that are empty, which we can tap into around Brisbane, Gold Coast and Ipswich to retrofit and modify for SDA compliant homes. And these are all under $400,000. Okay, and that's a big difference to purchasing an $800,000 house, which is for high physical or robust. So again, it's not really what I think or what you think. It depends on the availability of stock and the demand in the area, and the ability for people to borrow money from the lenders. So you can't, I mean, you may have as much positive, passionate desire to actually get into this sector as possible, as fast as possible. But if the bank doesn't lend you any money, you can't get into it. So we're trying to overcome that by producing stock, which is lower in price and more, I guess, applicable to the participants' needs, which is fit for their purpose, and go from there. I think that covers my slide there, Rob.
Right, thanks, Min. That covered off a couple of the questions that have come through around funding as well. So as a rough rule of thumb, we're talking about 50 to 60% LVR in order to get funding in this area, correct?
Funding's probably 70 to 80%. So some lenders are 80% LVR, some are 70%. Okay, plus a shortfall valuation of 15 to 20% on the contract price. Now, okay. One way we overcome that is we can actually get investors to purchase a brand new townhouse at $350,000, $360,000, settle on it as per normal investment, and then come in the back end after that to modify and retrofit it for more so improved livability designs.
Okay, so there's plenty of options.
Yeah, definitely options. We're also talking to a developer builder who has access to villas, low-set villas, two-bedroom villas. If there was one tenant in there, you're looking at $100,000 in gross income on a purchase price of $40,000.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Min. I'm conscious of time, so we'll hand over to Meredith Sweeney, Marketing and Sales Coordinator at Alice Developments. Meredith, are you there?
I am. I'm ready to go.
Okay, over to you.
All right. So this showcases we're a builder in Townsville, and this showcases one of our many designs specifically tailored for high physical support standalone homes. Going into the next one. As a builder, we're a multi-award winning Townsville builder based down in Southeast Queensland and now up in Townsville as well. We've earned a bit of a reputation for delivering innovative custom homes. And then in the last 3 years, we've really moved into the space of SDA and LHA properties around the state, even doing multi-level apartment complexes for the government that are all LHA, social housing, that sort of thing. So we've really taken into that space, and it's something that we're quite passionate about. And it is our goal to see participants with high needs, disabilities being appropriately housed. So the next slide, that's just a little bit about us. So as a builder for SBA and for our investors, we manage all the approvals through every stage and regulating body. So these homes are all really diligently planned, as Min was discussing earlier. They really have to meet some strict requirements for the NDIS, but we're also thinking about the tenants themselves. So we take all these. Yep.
Excuse me, Meredith and Rob. There's really bad echo, and we're having trouble hearing the words, what Meredith's saying.
Oh, thanks. Let me check my audio settings.
Rob, are you on mute, Rob?
Yes, I was on mute.
Is that better?
Again.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. So, as I was saying, we take all these into consideration and making sure that the home's also adaptable back to the owner-occupier market, as this is often an investment property. If our investors are looking to maybe have it as an SDA home for 10 years, but are looking down the line to maybe on-sell it. So we take those all into consideration. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Meredith, it's gone and frozen on me again. I think when I make changes and mute and unmute, it freezes it. So just give us a sec.
Yeah, no worries.
And we're going to go through the same issue we had before. Might be the internet connections down here in Melbourne. They've been really bad over the last week as well. There we go. Meredith, you right?
Yep, we're already up. So this is an example of one of our, sorry, slides are just in a different order. This is one of our, we have a development arm.
Meredith, you can keep talking while Rob's trying to sort it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, in addition to being a builder, we're also a land developer. So we have what Min has kind of touched on, what we can talk about later, is also doing single contracts. So that's something that we can add in together. One of our current packages we have on offer is at one of our developments, the Essence, which is in the Parkridge area. So that photo that you saw before, that was a drone image. That was the end of last year, but about 80% of lots have sold there, with many residents already living there. More of an owner-occupier market, so we do have an opportunity or two to build a standalone SBA home in there as well. The slides working through. Beautiful. So the Essence is in the Logan-Lea area, Parkridge. So it's a very quick drive, just 10 minutes to the hospital, which is great. It's close to shops, parks, all those things that you're looking for that are close, which is really important to tenants. The next one. So this is one of our packages. We'll go into detail about what goes into this build in a couple of slides. But as you can see, the price point, it's a standalone home. It's got 3 high physical support en-suited rooms plus an on-site carer. And the good thing is that from the outside of this house, it looks like it's just a normal house, which a lot of tenants want to live in as well, where it just seems like their home and it's special. We'll go into the next one. So this is just a blown up image of that same, about one of our Cambria Plus plans. So it's got generous circulation spaces throughout. The next slide will go through kind of a little bit more detail into what goes into an SBA home. Just to point out the high level of standard inclusions that go into SBA, this is for high physical support. So the entire home is step-free, the light switches, power points, cabinetry, and door handles are all accessible from a seated position, and they're quite large so that they're easier to access. Kitchens have special accessible appliances, including side-open ovens, and that's all included as well. The drawered pull-out dishwashers, pull-out pantries, and adjustable height bench tops in the kitchen, so the kitchen bench can actually move up and down depending on the needs of the tenants. All your internal doors are not really wide, so they're all 120 doors. Reinforcement in your bathroom walls for grab rails or supports, and the private on-site carers room. So that's just a few of the many things that go into designing and then fitting out these homes. Not going to go through all this, but just to show you these two slides, in addition to the normal inclusions in a home that go into making a high physical support SBA home, because it's so neat. Yep. This is an artistic render of our Cambria Plus, so you can have a bit of a look at the larger spaces, the special kitchen fit outs with adjustable vent pipes and that sort of thing. That's good. And the next one. This is one of our en-suited bathrooms. So you've got specialty toilets, grab rails, wall-mounted sinks so that people can put their wheelchairs under the sink, and completely step-free thresholds for the shower for ease of access. So as well, Lot 21 at the Essence, we, as a developer, we've also got the added benefit, excuse me, of working closely to do self-managed super funds for the finance side of things. So with that as well, yep, we've got single standard contracts as well. So this is a Cambria Plus available up in Townsville, so the land's a little bit less expensive. So, yep, and just to kind of touch on who we are as a builder, we are quite experienced in the custom home build. We're both a land developer and a builder, which affords us the opportunity to do those self-managed super fund contracts for our clients. And we work really closely with service providers. So I'm a part of a monthly meetup, or a Zoom nowadays meetup, with our local providers, discussing education, discussing getting participants through the SBA channel, introducing people to that world, as well as talking about demand. So I'm getting emails each week from participants there that are really looking for housing for their participants, and really trying to retrofit and get those needs in so that we can reach out with to MIN and tell them if people want to live in these houses, let's find some investors for it. So we're really passionate about the work, and looking forward to bringing more homes into Queensland specifically.
Okay, thank you, Meredith. That was enlightening. We'll now go to Jared, who'll just touch on and show a few photos of some of the houses that are being built. Jared, you there?
Yes, thanks, Rob.
Hello, right, everybody. I'll leave it over to you.
Thanks very much. Everybody, my name is Jared McHugh. My main role with Ming and Rob is really acquisitions. I've got a 20 years history in real estate, fully licensed real estate agent. So I'm fitting in here more as an acquisition and relationships that I've built up over the years with builders and land developers. So really coming back to this slide here, being at the right property, right market, right time, what we've already touched on is that each location at today might be in demand for high physical, improved livability, robust, but in maybe potentially 6 months' time might be a different market. So we're always talking to builders, we're always talking to participants and providers to making sure that we get into the in the right location, and following what we've already touched on, that the providers are critical, obviously, that communication between us, that we know what their demand is for that location. So definitely constant communication is the key for our company, and talking straight to the providers. Next slide, please. Part of the acquisitions, obviously we have a stock list. So we talk to a lot of builders lately that are just entering the market, but then on top of that, like Alice Developments have been in the industry for 30 years, but probably been in the NDIS or SDA arena for a while. So we have a stock list. We have opportunities for anybody coming forward with it through us that we can provide stock. So give you a bit of an idea there, there's Northern New South Wales, Central Queensland, being Mackay, Southeast Queensland is the majority of it, Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, and Lockley Valley region, which is Toowoomba region. So we definitely got our thumbs on the pulse there. So touching base on pedigree of builders, inclusions, we've sort of gone over that, but I just want to emphasise that we always are communicating with the builders. We in some cases asking for larger designs, and we are starting to control what the builders are offering, and we have good relationships. Next slide, please. This is one of, again, we've gone over a high physical. This is a high physical property that is completed. So it is good to touch base on this, just to give you an idea again, you know, accessibility into the garage. Next slide, please. Once again, being high physical, you know, you'll see that the doorways have to meet a requirement of minimum 920. Yeah, so basically mobility is a very important part of this one. This is a high physical property. Next slide, please. Yep. Reinforcements into the rail there. Hoists is part of it as well. So it's got to have a very high level of support for the property. Next slide, please. That's the bathroom. So once again, yeah, it gives you a bit of a range and understanding that the kitchen there especially, Meredith did touch on it before, that, you know, it is a specialist area. So so the builders that, and the main reason for me to talk about this now is the builders that we go to, we actually went to a builder last week that is just starting, and we looked at the design and we know immediately they you know, that there's a lot for improvement for them. So we are selecting the right product for the right areas again, and then going into the right builders. So with the demand for the location. And that's another picture of the kitchen with the height, adjustable drawers. Perfect room for wheelchair to go under with the cooktop, so the minimum height there. And slide out for the pantry. A big part of what we've noticed too is the outdoor area. So what we're trying to do with the builders that we work with is next slide please, is trying to get that outdoor entertainment area more accessible around the house, and that's the perfect slide there. Perfect. So we are trying to increase the accessibility of the wheelchair participant and use less yard. So the less, it's a lot different from having a normal investment. So the less grass is less maintenance, and that's what we're trying to do, is get more access for the participant down the side of the house as well. So why use NDIS property? Look, we're constantly looking and communicating with providers. Ming touched on it the last week and a half, 2 weeks. We have had numerous meetings with the largest townhouse developer in Queensland. We're pretty close to putting pen to paper with an agreement with them. So we will be one of the companies out there with a lower entry level. So that's the townhouses that Min spoke about, and that's exciting to us because, you know, it gives that, instead of land price range, we can, with a lower borrowing capacity, we can get people into the market. And that's where we're talking to the developers and providers, making sure that we fit it out, because we've got the expertise with the company that can fit out a townhouse once it's settled first, and then we'll get SDA approved, probably going into that improved livability sector. So working with custom investments, that's what we're all about. And yeah, guys, I look forward to seeing what sort of business and how we can help, and yeah, basically help anybody and work with relationships with providers and developers and moving forward.
All right, thanks, Jared. That was great. And it's good to actually see some photos and visualise what these properties look like and how they're different to normal investment properties. Well, one thing just quickly, I speak to investors and they say, well, what is the risk if we have to go back to a normal investment property? Well, as you saw there, that there's still opportunities to rent it out to elderly Australians who might have issues with their hips. They're going to want these type of properties, even if they're not in the NDIS system themselves. So, you know, worst case, that is an option if the NDIS program doesn't get extended after 20 years.
I have a comment for you, Rob, on that very point.
Yep.
If there was only one high physical wheelchair person in the house, one, with a carer, and the other 2 rooms are empty, the rent is still $52,000 a year from that 1 bedroom.
Yeah, which is far higher than a normal investment property.
Which is more than the 4 bedrooms rented out to a young family anyway.
And it's a government guaranteed rent for 20 years.
Correct, yes.
It's also, we haven't mentioned, it's linked to the CPI, so it's going to go up each year by roughly 3%, the rental agreement. And it's got bipartisan support from both sides of Parliament. So if you think the risks are the federal government going to pull the rug out of this funding, it's very, very unlikely. It wouldn't be a good look for the federal government to be pulling funding from the disabled community.
And also, on that very point, it costs the government $300,000 a year to manage one disabled young person in aged care facility or a hospital.
Yeah, so this is actually cheap funding for the government, even though it looks like they're spending a lot of money. All right, thank you all for attending today. I hope it didn't go too badly. There's a few technical glitches there, but we'll learn from that in future. Now, as we mentioned, we do want to touch base with you all and see how we can work together going forward. You can either, for those of you who are in Melbourne and know myself, feel free to give me a call or I'll give you a call. For those of you in Brisbane or any others, you can contact Debbie, you see on screen, Debbie at ndis.property, to touch base and then see where we can go from there. For those of you who still want to stay on, we'll show you a few more photos of some of the more high-end properties, and also we've got a section on frequently asked questions that we can go through as well. I'm just reticent to look in the question and answers now, because every time I do that, it actually, the screen freezes on me. So what I might do is, for those of you who are busy and need to go now, we thank you for your attendance and hope that you learned something today. As we said, it's an exciting new area, literally only been going for a year. It's got huge potential and growth for all participants. And if you're looking to potentially use this as a referral network to create business for your clients, then it's a socially responsible, great investment that will make everyone feel good, whilst providing very strong, solid future investment returns for clients. I know personally, selling investment property over the last 20 years, I'm starting to wonder whether a traditional investment property has the same risk rewards now than what it, say, had 20 years ago. So this has come along at a perfect time. Great for funding future retirement. So if you've got clients that are in their 40s or 50s worried about how they're going to be able to service their retirement going forward, because this is such a high yielding opportunity, and at a relatively low risk, it's definitely a sector to look at. The one thing that we didn't touch on as well when Min and I attended the summit last week is that there are some very big funds and superannuation players that are now looking to enter this sector with billions of dollars of their clients' money. So that tells you that they believe that the risk reward in this sector is huge going forward. And they're redirecting money from their traditional investments into this. We want to be at the forefront of that and the start of that, and we want to help you guys do that as well by providing opportunities for you. Quick questions, you can purchase it through an SMSF as long as it's done as a single contract, and we showed you through Meredith earlier that there are examples of that, and we'll find more if needed. You can also use unit trusts where you can pull clients' funds, and as mentioned, the actual participants themselves, we really want to help them actually be able to afford and purchase their own home, or for their families to purchase it for them as both an investment and to give them peace of mind. Similar time frame to build these properties, 6 or 7 months. That doesn't change from a normal investment property. It has the standard builder's warranties associated. As we've tried to really emphasise during this webinar, we think the key is to involve the end participants right at the very start, build what they want, where they want, and allow them to live with who they want, so that there's no risk of vacancy once these properties are built. We're not taking the approach of build it and they will come, because that's where you can go wrong in this sector. You can't lease it through a traditional real estate agent. They have to be a licensed provider. That's one difference. And it is a little bit more complicated, as I said, involving head leases and subleases. It involves the government payments, but at the end of the day, it's a solid income stream for 20 years guaranteed. It gets enrolled in the program as soon as you receive the certificate of practical completion, so very similar to normal rental property process. Again, it's up to us in consultation with the builders and the SIL providers and the end participants as to who lives in these properties, and matching up so that they'll enjoy living with each other and they're suitable to live in the houses together or the apartments. You receive the government payment. What we didn't really touch on is you also receive 25% of the disability supplement from the actual renter participant themselves. So they are contributing to this via their pension, and you also receive 100% of the government rental assistance. There is vacancy risk. We're assuming 2 to 4 weeks after it's built before everything's up and running and fully occupied, but very similar to a normal investment property. Typical leases start between 12 and 24 months, but we believe that there is much more stickiness with the renters in this sector, and they may well stay for the full 20 years. And if you lose a tenant, similar to a normal investment property, you have to obviously advertise or find a new tenant with the help of the SIL providers and the SDA providers. The government does provide allowances and funding for that process as well for vacancy. So a very quick summary, because I'm conscious that we've gone over time.
So Rob, just for
what impact investing is. Sorry.
Back one slide. Just if people worry about rental, if a tenant moves out, the government will still pay rent for 60 days or 90 days after they've departed.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've talked about what impact investing is. It's socially responsible investing that's going to benefit the community, and in particular, the disabled participants themselves. So it's a good thing to be involved with. It's a good thing to invest in and potentially recommend to your clients as well. We've talked about what the NDIS is, what the SDA is, and that's a lot of terminology, the objectives of the scheme, who can invest. We've touched on the risks and the pitfalls, but talk to us more about those, because we think about them all the time to minimise the risk. And lastly, have a think about how we can help you going forward, whether you're a client, whether you're a referrer, a provider or a carer, where you can actually showcase this opportunity to your client base. Again, it's who we are and where you can contact us or contact me on my mobile. And finally, I'll run through a few slides. Min, you can jump in as well if you like. This is an example of a very high-end build, which you can do from an investment point of view. Maybe you'd be spending too much money, but it just gives you an idea of what is being built out there. It's a dual lock home, so it's on a large block. 60s architectural design, so, you know, really pleasing to the eye to look at, with nice lines and colours. And the internals, as you can see, very much like a high-end hotel accommodation. Give you an idea, this property was probably $1.5 million to build. It was at least
and that's build price.
Yeah, build price without the land.
Plus land price is $2 million all up. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's actually been built in Sydney, so where land prices are higher, and you can obviously justify this type of build more. And it may be the sort of thing that an actual participant themselves with their family would build that want a higher end finish.
The design and the build took 3 years.
As you can see, magnificent kitchens, adjustable benches, high-end appliances, high-end tiles, flooring, nice bathrooms. Again, bedroom, more akin to a high-end hotel. On the right-hand side in the middle, you'll see the automation device, which this home is fully voice activated and automated for all the doors, everything, light switches. So someone in a wheelchair doesn't have to worry about turning on switches. They can just voice activate everything. Laundry, where the actual appliances are lower for people in a wheelchair to be able to easily access. And this is the carer room / office, where the carer or breakout room, depending on what you want to use it for.
There's also a spare bed in the wall there. Spare bed
in the wall, so if they need to stay over. Also high-end landscaping outside.
And that landscaping was put in place as part of the retaining wall. So retaining wall, landscaping, 2-in-1 function.
Barbecue facilities, so they can enjoy the lifestyle outside and entertain. Great. All right, well, thank you all for attending. As mentioned, please feel to contact us. Thank you to Min, to Jared, to Meredith for talking about their parts. Hopefully there weren't too many hiccups and you all were able to take something out of this presentation. And as I mentioned, please contact us at any time to see how we can help you.
Rob, there was
Yep.
There was 2 questions asked in the chat box from various attendees.
Okay, do you want to look at those? I'm just scared to go to them because every time I did, it's froze the screen.
I've already read it. And I just want to touch base on 2 of them. One question was asked by Juan. He asked, what are the fees for the provider costs? The answer is it ranges from 8% per year, 8% plus GST, plus 2% compliance fee, to even 10, 11% plus GST. There are occasions where I've seen it and I'm a little bit surprised with the fees, as high as 16% per year, which is pretty high in our view. Another question was asked by one of the individuals who asked, is the PowerPoint slide available? Again, any request for information you need for the PowerPoint slide, we can look into that, and just email Debbie any direct questions and requests, and we'll get around to getting that sorted out for yourselves. Yeah.
I just have mentioned as well, Min, what we're seeing a lot of offers in this sector where it is clearly taking advantage of people in terms of price, where houses are being sold for $900,000 that should be $600,000 because they're justifying it based on the potential yield.
Correct.
And we're also seeing other offers where the yield, which we've talked about, might be $90,000 a year, where unscrupulous operators are saying they'll guarantee a $45,000 to $50,000 income per year, and they're keeping half of it themselves. So we don't want to do anything like that or be associated with any companies that would do that. We can still earn a good living out of doing this and offering great results for clients without taking advantage of anybody.
Correct. I mean, at the end of the day, the range of yields returns for investors is between 15 to 25% returns per year. That's a gross figure. You take off about 3-4% off that is your actual net figure, because you'll pay for compliance fees, the SDA property management fees, maintenance of the house, so to speak. So a conservative estimate is 10 to 15% return on your money. And I personally, I go back to what I said earlier about half an hour ago. Why spend 800-900 grand to earn 100 grand return when you can spend 500 grand, 400 grand for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom unit that's SDA compliant? Okay, so I'm not saying there's right or wrong. It comes back to really the demand of the participants and the providers. It's what they want and what they can. It's about them, not about us. Not about what we want or where we want it. It's about what they want. So in essence, it is a owner-occupier build design for a actual renter, because it's all about what their needs are. If you fail to deliver their needs, you'll lose them as a tenant and you'll lose out on income. The goal is to have them have the property fit for purpose, so they live there for many, many, many years. And to be honest, if every investor just purchased one SDA home and hold for 15, 20 years, that literally is $2 to $2.5 million of return of income for one property over 20 years. 100 grand a year comes 20 years with CPI is $2.3 million. That's the truth of the numbers. Yeah.
The other thing to mention, Ben, that we didn't touch on as well is we talked about how initially funding is reasonably difficult for now because it's so new and you do require that 40-odd% upfront capital. After a year or two where this sector's got a track record and the rentals coming in, there will be opportunities to refinance through commercial loans or residential where you'll be able to get a higher LVR going forward. So from a strategy point of view and investment point of view, there's enormous opportunities here.
Correct. And if you revalue it with a commercial loan facility who values it on the actual rent received, the tenancy in place, you'll be able to redraw equity out of the property very easily at a higher LVR. Yes, that's another finance strategy which we'll cover next time. Yeah.
All right, Ben, any other questions? I'm conscious of time. I'll let everyone go.
Meredith, Jared, any other points you think we should cover before we end the presentation?
I'll just add one little thing, that we're constantly evolving. And I'd just like to say it is exciting that because we've been in the industry a long time, the connections that we do have, we are going to some good levels of entry levels for people. So that is exciting. And we'll be one of the few out there that will be in that sub 400 market.
And also, we're not all about selling property either. We are aware of stock by developers who are holding it, who, for example, we have access to 300 apartments in Gold Coast that are 3 years old. And we're not here to sell them. We're here to place participants into that if there's a need for it. So if one of the providers on the webinar here say, we have 2 participants, high physical needs in Gold Coast, they want immediate accommodation, we can get that retrofitted and modified immediately within under 2 months and put them into accommodation straight away. So it's all there ready to go. We just need to know where they want and how they want it. That's it.
All right, thanks, Ben. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Meredith. Thanks for all the attendees. We'll let you go and enjoy the day and feel free to contact us. Thank you. Bye.